This podcast has mature language, not intended for underage viewers.
Street cred sports. Street cred sports. I'm crossing over. I'm Euro stepping.
Hello, this is Keenan of Street Cred Sports Training, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. It's been almost 2 weeks, people. I'm happy to be back. This is episode 32. I hope y'all are staying cool. They got me in this hot-ass desert. It is hot out here, like super hot. Like for real super hot. So hopefully everybody's staying hydrated, staying cool. It's not time to be outside watering your yard in the evening or afternoon or cutting the yard. Either do it early morning or evening. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to be outside at night with the lawnmower and the flashlight cutting the yard. So it's been a while. It's been real busy, this summer. Almost glad that school's getting ready to start because I'm up here all day, every day. Might as well sleep in the facility with a sleeping bag. But last week, I wasn't able to do a podcast because I was in Vegas. Baby. But I ain't win no money because I didn't spend no money. I'm not trying to walk out there asking people for spare change because I didn't spend all my money. So I'll get to some sights and sounds of Vegas. Let me get into my portal problems. And if you hear some beeping and stuff in the background, that's the logo. I might try to get him to come in and say a few words. But the logo is in the house doing some work. So I'm just going to try to keep it quiet and not bother. But let me get to some stuff that been on my mind. I did have a coach send me some information. And, we always communicate. And I always like to try to bring stuff up that we talk about. We're talking about the portal. If you don't know the portal, we're talking about the NCAA portal system. What is the portal system? The portal is, let's say you go to college, any college, any division, and it doesn't work out, and then you decide you don't want to go to that school anymore, you can enter the portal. It's basically just a pool where you put your name out there that you're decommitting from school A, and you're opening up the possibility to going to a different school. It's taken hold and it's been very significant. It's really, I think it's kind of leveled the playing field on two fronts. I think it's leveled the playing field with smaller schools, knowing now that they could get a Power 5 kid that could come in and really put them in position to compete. Now in basketball, it's a little bit easier. In football, you still have it harder because you have so many kids that are 5 stars going to Alabama and stuff like that. Basketball, I think it showed you that with this year's Final Four because we had UConn, then you had Florida International University, I think. I'm just butchering it. And then you had San Diego State. So you had a couple of 2 or 3 schools that in Miami University, which is in the Big East, but they're a non-traditional basketball powerhouse. So you had 2 mid-majors and then 2 Power 5 conference schools in the Final Four. So the numbers, the statistics, they're kind of different depending on what you look at. I looked at a couple of them. One statistic seemed to show that it was about 50% of the kids that go into the portal come out, which means that there are 50% that don't go back to school. Now, what they don't look at, obviously, is, if some of these kids are deciding they don't want to play anymore, because that happens. Some kids will go in and realize, what, college sports isn't for me. I think I'm just going to finish going my degree. So, they might enter it wanting to go play, but then throughout the course, they decide they're not going to play anymore. So there are little subvariants in these numbers, but it is eye popping that whether it's 50%, whether it's 80%, whether it's 90%. So that means one kid who signed a letter of intent to play college sports that had a full ride went into the portal and wasn't able to come out on the other side with another school. So, you know, it's it's kind of the adult mentality to where you're gonna choose. You're gonna have to choose sometimes and make that decision. Now, with this, uh, I'll get more into it, but there was a spirited discussion with a college coach on the whole portal thing. I thought we was finna start throwing hands. No, it wasn't that serious. But I'm always willing to look at it a different way. And his point, we were actually on the same point, but when the conversation started, I kind of answered it probably at the end without giving much context. And he was like, well, just answer the question. And me trying to give context to explain why I was doing it, he just wanted the answer, so I gave him the answer. And basically, it was about, the question was, should kids be able to enter the portal? Now, I feel, and I told him, I said, well, yeah, and I think like you should be able to enter the portal, right? First time. Then after that, then if you go to another school and it doesn't work out, you can enter the portal, but that's when you would have to sit a year. And I felt like it would stop, the whole culture of just, oh, I'm gonna go to this school, I'm gonna go to this school, I'm gonna go to this school. Then the question was raised, well, what about coaches? And I feel like, it should be kind of tied the same way, because what I've always said, and you can check earlier podcasts, I've said this. I don't feel it's right for a coach to try to recruit a kid, say he's committed to the kid, you're gonna learn family, everything, rah rah rah, get them there, and then turn around and leave for another school. I don't, I know they do it, but I don't think it's cool or right. It should be, you know what? Maybe that coach should sit out a year, right? So throughout the conversation, we what I explained was, I think maybe you should tie it to both, to where if you're either going to allow everybody the opportunity to do it, to leave, or nobody gets a chance to leave. So if a coach signs a 4-year contract, well, he's got to stay for 4 years, right? There is no buyout. There is no, hey, this place gets a chance to get incentives and they get their boosters to put up the money. Nah, his ass got to stay for 4 years. Come holler at me in 4 years, and after his contract's over, and you can do whatever you want, right? So that's kind of how we were. Now, in throughout the conversation, what I started to think about was, yeah, you know what, you I guess it should be allowed to just leave and go to any school, because if you look at a kid, or you look at someone who goes to college, right? Let's say they go to one university, they go there for a year, they take their credits, they don't want to go to that school, or they change majors or something, then they go to another school. They go to that school. Maybe they there for 2 years. Maybe they decide to do another major. Now they maybe switch schools across the country. You can, I mean, I don't know of anybody who's switched schools that many times, but I would say you could technically go to 4 different universities and get a degree, as long as your credits line up, So in life, you can leave job to job to job to job. I'm just more of a, I hate to use the term loyalty, because I know it's not really something that people do as much today. But I like to just say, I'm gonna commit to you, and you gonna commit to me. Now, if there's something that happens throughout the course where I'm not living up to what I said I was, yeah, I get it. But like, if you're just gonna leave, then you leave. Then you want to come back because it didn't work out. Well, no, you left. But, different people have different views on the portal. And I was happy to have that conversation with him. I mean, I really was. And afterwards there was dapping up and we laughed about some stuff. And I, was like, hey, I'm going to send you some gear, man. And I'm going to look at keeping in touch with you and looking at getting some kids for you that can play and stuff. So you can have a disagreement, and you can see two different viewpoints. And there might have been a point where we just didn't agree. You can just agree that you're going to disagree, and that should be fine. So I really enjoyed it. And it gave me another perspective on it that I didn't quite. I kind of was thinking about, but I never really decided to look at it from that aspect of, well, why should they be allowed, one transfer? Because like coaches aren't allowed one. If a coach leaves for a job and then a year into his contract, a bigger school wants to sign him, he's gone. As long as they pay that school the money. So I enjoyed the perspective he gave me. Now, there were jumping into the NBA real quick. There are players that were trying to get back into the league. Isaiah Thomas, the younger version, you had Deion Waiters, John Wall, and a couple others. And the sad part in the reality is that players, you can build the league up, but at the same time the league moves on, right? So I use my business as an example. The business, Street Cred Sports, would continue if I got sent to prison, right, and I'm gone. Business is gonna keep going. So when you build something, you have to be mindful when you're a part of that, how you can best stretch out your career. So I'm saying all that because IT, unfortunately, at the height when he was up for MVP with Boston, he played through an injury. He thought by playing through an injury, he was showing the toughness and stuff, but it actually hampered him getting a new contract. And then that just spiraled out of control to where he's out of the league. No one can give a definitive answer what is wrong with him for him not to be in the league, because he was in the league and he was an MVP candidate. He was killing for Boston. So how is it that all of a sudden he doesn't know how to play basketball or he can't help a team? Okay, then you have John Wall. John Wall's just been plagued by injuries, and I don't know what it is. I would think at some point John probably has to start looking to see what is it that he's doing, because he was at Washington, and then you get traded to Houston, and then that didn't go right because they started a youth movement. So then you get moved over to the Clippers, and you figure, man, he's gonna fit with them. And he was hurt, here and there, but when he was physically able, he didn't really seem like he fit the way you thought he was. And then they waived him. So now he's trying to get back in. So at some point you gotta look at yourself. Now Deion Waiters, he talked about it at length, and he said, there was some things that he was going through personal that kind of, how do I say it? It kind of not hampered, but it created more issues than what there needed to be because of stuff he was going through. And we get it, all personal and stuff. But on the basketball side, he admitted, he just felt like, hey man, I should be this, I should be that. And he probably should have been and could have been on some teams. But when you get on certain teams, you have to understand, look, you might not be the priority. So that whole system and that thought process of coming in, being the guy, no, you have to come in and fill a role. So if you're not willing to fill a role, and do what that team is needing, they're going to move on. It's almost a youth movement. Most of these teams are going dramatically younger, So I it's a shout out to Chris Paul, and I hope Chris Paul heeds the advice, and the thought that he might not be a starter at Golden State. I think, I think he's going to be like the version of Sean Livingston. Now, obviously, he's not tall like him, but I'm saying, point guard, stabilize the second unit. That, to me, that's what was missing with them this past year. Is they had scorers, but they didn't have anybody to stabilize that second unit and make sure the ball was, flowing and people were getting the shots. Chris Paul's going to make sure that happens. So I think you'll see some of those other guys play more at their natural position and really excel with him there. But, word on the street is he's not looking to come off the bench, and I don't know how true that is. I'm hoping it's not, because, he shouldn't want to start. He should want to come off the bench and limit his minutes, because when he plays lots of minutes, he don't finish the season. So you want him to be right for the season and into the playoffs to stabilize the second unit. So if he's really adamant that he's going to start and it doesn't work out, and then, he's disgruntled, this could be the end of the road for him, because he's went from New Orleans, then he went to the Clippers, then he went to Houston, then he went to OKC, and then he's been with Phoenix, and then they just traded him, and he went from from Washington to Golden State. So he's traveled, and sometimes you got to understand that might be your last stop. And your way is not gonna work in some systems. So I would like to see it. I don't want to see him starting, because they're going to be way too small for some teams. But they've made things work in the past, so I'd have to wait and see how they're doing. But it's a sad reality that NBA players, the shelf life is starting to dwindle. You're not seeing guys that are being vets into their mid to late 30s being on these teams. These teams are grabbing younger players and trying to develop them at a faster rate. All right, so Vegas, baby. All right, so in Vegas, I went up there. I've been, asked to go for the past 8 years. To go Vegas, not to party, but to partake in the basketball festivities. And I decided to go, so it was a workcation for me. And I took the lovely missus up there, and and we went, stayed in the hotel. We got a nice little rate on the hotel. We were on the Strip. Couldn't drive around anywhere because the traffic was terrible. I mean, like, really terrible. So you'd have to walk, but with it being 110, 112, you wasn't trying to do anything. But I got to go scout a game. I went and scouted one of the El Paso local teams called Sun City Hype. They won a tournament. Saw them. I liked the way they played. Then we went to the Summer League, NBA Summer League games. And it was really cool, man. It's really cool. It's a nice experience. If you're ever there in Vegas during the Summer League, go catch a game. I was more worried about how much they were going to charge us for parking, because it seemed like you had to pay for everything. Anywhere you walk outside next door, man, you got to pay for that, right? So, but apparently the parking fee was included in the ticket. So, and then you're not going for one game. You can go and stay and watch all 4 or 5 games that are played, or actually it's like 8 to 10 games, because they're playing on 2 different courts. So you can go watch all of those games, and then they have all of this stuff upstairs, experience and stuff. So it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. Got to see some of the young talent. Got to see some NBA brethren, not brethren. I'm saying it like I played in the NBA. But I saw, Tracy McGrady when I first pulled up. Now, look, I didn't get a chance to say hi to him. And if I did, I'd have been like, hey, what's going on? Mr. McGrady. I'm not that, groupie guy that's gonna be like, oh my God, let me take a picture and kiss my kids and stuff like that. Hold my wife, nah, I don't do that. I'm gonna respect you. Hey, I appreciate what you did. I enjoyed watching you play. Give you a pound and I'm gone. So he should be asking if he could take a picture with me. But no, we saw him. Saw lots of NBA personnel. I saw Greg Foster. Didn't get a chance to talk to him. I messaged him and he was like, well, why didn't you come and say hi? And I was like, man, by the time I was gonna come down and say you was already moving. I could tell you were working. So it was cool seeing a lot of NBA personnel and players and stuff out there. So if you happen to go, then go, because it is real special. We also, I didn't get a chance to attend the WNBA skills game or the actual All-Star game. I saw that girl Sabrina light that scoreboard up with. Boy, that girl was cooking. She was cooking so much to where you had Steph shouting out, and now I think he wants to get the record because she only missed 2. I think out of 27 shots she missed 2 threes, so she has 37 points. Most of between the NBA and WNBA. So shout out to Sabrina with the high score, and I think that sets the stage for next year. I have no idea why they had it on at 1, and I just happened to be in the room and happened to turn it on and watch, which is sad. That should have been on prime time, so you could have had more people witness how hot she was when she was shooting that thing. Then the reason I was there was to scout partake in the Las Vegas Big Time tournament. And this is a big tournament. I mean, and this is prestigious. So prestigious that they have the games Saturday, Sunday, and then I believe they do a tournament format and they take the top teams and they play on Monday on ESPN. So I'm watching some of the games on ESPN. I was like, oh, okay, I saw that kid. That kid could play. This team's really good, so on and so forth. And it was packed. And in a live period with college coaches, you had tons of college coaches. So when I first got there, I sit down, and then as the coaches were coming, I had Rutgers on one side, head coach, and then I had Duke head coach and assistant coach on my right side. You had John Lucas from the Houston Rockets walking around. So then the first game I got to see was Bronny James. I don't think it's Bronny. It's the younger brother. But LeBron James' youngest son and Carmelo Anthony's son play on the same team. And they were playing another team, and that team was coached by Sam Mitchell. So it was really good to see, and you could tell it had to be a good game that was coming up because everybody was over on that side. So I was able to watch that game and actually talk to somebody that I found out later was an NBA agent, and was able to assess and stuff, and pick his brain and talk about talent and stuff. So I felt good because I always figured I knew what the hell I was talking about, but sometimes it's good when you're around somebody else, and they value what you say, and you're able to sit there and say, hey, I know what I'm talking about a little bit. So it was really cool to see those games. I was able to scout some other games. Shout out to Las Vegas Big Time for allowing me the opportunity to be there. Shout out to Area Code Basketball with Chad Groth for kind of pushing me and getting me in there, and he takes care of me. He does take care of me. I mean, you feel like a fish out of water because look, I'm gonna be real. Not everybody in the profession is cool. You got some that are kind of shitty. So some of them coaches, they don't look like, they look like they don't want you to approach them or say hi or don't talk to me, like they're too good for it. I'd say 95% of all of those coaches, I wasn't trying to sit down and talk to them and take pictures and stuff, but acknowledging them and saying, hey, how you doing, sir? That to me that's the way I was brought up. So I'm always gonna approach it that way. And they were, for the most part, everybody was very gracious and, hey, nice to meet you and stuff. So I look forward to continuing that and having a bigger role at some point, being there to help further what they're doing, because they got a great tournament. So next thing I wanted to talk about was the difference between street ball and organized ball. Well, the reason I started talking about this is because I know a lot of times you'll hear people on threads, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, Facebook, and sometimes they'll be talking about this and that, or you'll hear it in barbershops and they're talking about whatever. And you always have people that'll comment like, oh man, I could be in the league. I can do this, I can do that in the league. Not really understanding how strong and how powerful professional athletes are. Hey, well look, I get the whole, you want to have confidence in yourself. But like, if you never really touched the ball and you've maybe played only like at a, I'll say the Y, but I'll just say an open gym, and when you watch open gym and you're watching street ball, in street ball, I don't mean like the N1. I'm just saying guys who are just trying to stay in shape, so they're out there playing. Nobody's really playing defense in street ball. Nobody's really contesting. Even when it's game point, you might have one or two guys really playing a little bit harder defensively. But everybody's like, if he makes it, he makes it. If he makes it. And it's always the dude who ain't hit nothing in the whole game who has the weirdest shot. If you let that person shoot the shot, he's going to make it. He or she's going to make it, right? So you have people who say, one thing or another. I had friends growing up that were really good at the court. But when I always say, man, why don't you come play, when we were playing high school, and it's like, you don't play. And it's like, man, I can't do like the organized stuff. I don't do well with the lights and the whistles and the plays and stuff like that. So what you have to understand is the playing ball in an organized state, on a high level, it's not something that everybody can do, because it's not just watch your man. Right? Like if you're playing street ball, your man might stay on the same corner the whole game. He might run down and he stays on that corner, right? So you're there. You don't have to worry about help side. You just like, nah, I'm gonna guard my man. Y'all gotta guard y'all man. That's not an organized sports play. You have to be able to help your teammate and help the helper. What that means is if your guy helps defensively and the ball goes to him, you got to help him and get to his guy. And then somebody rotates, right? You got to know that. And then when you're playing offense, you got to understand how the ball's moving, and street ball is a lot more one-on-one. You might get a pass, you might get a cut, but you might get a pick and roll, but the game is stagnant. Organized ball, there's a lot of movement. You try guarding somebody when they're running, certain sets where you're guarding somebody and he's running all over the place and they're setting screens and back screens and split cuts and all of those things, and you pick and roll. Oh man, are we switching? What are we doing? What? No, you're supposed to get them. Nah, it's too late now. They didn't throw a lot. So street ball is street ball. It's for people to stay in shape, and guys who maybe used to play. It's a way for them to continue to play, but it's not as aggressive. It's not it's not as intense as it is when you're playing in a regular game. Hey, L, you got anything to add to that? Oh man, the threads. You see some of the threads, and dudes be like, "Oh, he couldn't score on me. I could defend," and then you're like, "Man, who have you defended? If you was really good, you probably would be on somebody's roster on something." Now, if you're an ex-college player, you could say that, right? Because you've played at a high level. But dudes who only play on Sunday Sunday mornings at the park, early, or they go to the Y or open gym 2 or 3 times a week, and they don't never bring the ball up the court. They don't really set a pick and stuff. Man, nah, y'all got to stay in your lane and understand that it's a big difference between the two. All right, so let me get into my basketball ideology. I'm going to start with my basketball terminology. What I'm going to discuss right now is what I call, there's a term called a dunker spot. All right, so what's the dunker spot? It's usually the spot down in the low block. Now, it's also considered the short corner, and it's just the area outside of the low block along the baseline. Now, it's the dunker spot, in the sense that if you're penetrating, if your man helps and you get that pass, you're probably going to be able to get a dunk via catch, one dribble, or catch, turn, and dunk, or it's a lot. There are a lot of teams that will put players there that will force the defense to shift if the defense is playing them a certain way, and you're getting straight line drives. So now that defender has to decide whether he's going to stay with his person and allow the driver to shoot a layup, or take the layup away and allow the baseline pass to that person in that spot. Now, when they say short corner, it's also an area that extends out about maybe 5 to 10 feet from along the baseline from the low block. And this allows guys to be able to shoot as well. So you will see a lot of sets where you'll have a post player mainly in that spot. And it's designed, if that post player can shoot that little catch and shoot, it's good, because again, you can stretch the defense when the guard is penetrating. And if you can shoot, I think if you can shoot that little 8 to 10 foot shot, I think that allows more freedom for that guard to penetrate than throwing that lob. Because if you're throwing a lob, you're still gonna have that defender close, right? And things happen. So having them to be able to shoot that little 8 to 10 foot catch and shoot off the penetration jump shot will really prove dividends for you if you have a good guard that can penetrate. So that's the term today. It's the dunker spot / short corner, and where the area is. So if you're not sure what it is, Google it. Google it. You when you watch basketball, you will see it a lot. Bigs will stand there. Okay. All right. Now, I do want to touch on 2 things. I won't be doing a bonus content today, but I do want to touch on 2 things. The first thing I want to touch on is I really feel like there's a disconnect between city coaches and others, meaning trainers, high school coaches. I think there's a disconnect all around, unless you put yourself out there to where you understand that you're trying to help each other, right? I think we've done a pretty solid job of letting high school coaches, as well as AAU coaches and city coaches, know that, look, we're not a threat to you. We're not trying to take anybody's job. All our job is, our space is to help the kids get better. So when they're better players, then they're going to perform and they're going to make you look better as a coach. So that's all we try to do. But there are time and time. I give you an instance. I have a kid who he wasn't playing much, and now he has been playing a lot. He could play. He wasn't getting as much opportunity, and he was a little confidence issues. But we fixed those to where he's gotten. He's starting to show what he can do, and the kid was struggling on defense. He was running, I think it was a 1-2-2 zone, and he was struggling because he didn't know where to be. Now, city coach, had the team, and they would have practice. Now, they would yell at him for not knowing what he was doing, but what they didn't do was they didn't actually dissect the way the defense is supposed to run and where you're supposed to go every step of the way. right? Now, this is coming from mom and the kid, because the kid kept saying, no, I go here. I said, well, where are you supposed to be? Well, he doesn't know. Now, part of that could be maybe he wasn't paying attention, right? And it happens. But I think in practice, when you're installing something, when you're installing the offense, you go through the offense. So needless to say, work with the kid on defense, showed him where he needed to be on both instances, whether they were trapping or whether he was just running, traditionally. Next few games, mom was like, oh my God, he was doing such a good job. Coach was very pleased with how he's progressing on his defense, right? So, and apparently they know that he comes over here and he trains with us. So then I tell the mom, I say, well, you know what? Ask him about the plays so I can work with him on the plays and help him, have a better understanding, because I guess a lot of times they go through the plays, but they're not like going through the plays. They run the plays, but they're not going through them. Like, hey, you got to be here. That's about your first option is this. If not, the ball needs to swing. This is what you need to do. So they have a better understanding of it, right? Well, the mom comes back and tells me that the coach says, oh, well, now he's not going to understand our play. So, and she said he was kind of sarcastic about it, and she was like, oh, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I just helped them understand your very complicated 1-2-2 defense, right? That you weren't able to help them. So I explained to the mom, I said, look, some coaches have egos, and, some of it is warranted, and they want to feel like they're the reason that things are happening. But what we do in our space is to help. Like, I'm not going to the game, flashing the Street Cred Sports Training banner every time one of our kids makes a good play saying, hey, we did that. I'm not plastering all through social media all the kids that come to us, that we're able to help go to college or what have you. I'm not doing that. We're doing our job, right? So if it can help your instance, why not allow us to help? But there is a big disconnect, because there are some city league coaches, some high school coaches, some training organizations, and some AAU coaches that feel like it's all about them, and they're the reason for whatever success they've had. And that's not true. It's not true. I said we serve a purpose. We get the kid good. We try to our job is to get the kid good enough to where when that kid is performing on the team, they look good on that team. It's a coordination thing. I'm not coaching the kid. Some of these coaches aren't training the kid. And one of the biggest thing that boggles my mind is when you have coaches who will have a kid on the team 2-3 years, 2-3-4 seasons, and the kid doesn't get any better, and then they're saying, well, you got to just keep practicing. And then they say, well, parents are often, and this is from lots of parents. This is not from one parent. Parents will often say, well, can you work with them? And then these coaches will say, oh, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to work with them. Yeah, that's not true. Maybe in some instances, in very small instances, but the real reason is they don't know how to. And it's fine. It's okay to say, look, you know what? They need help that I don't know how to, right? So, you know what? Let's find them somewhere where they can give them the help they need. There's nothing wrong with that. If there was something that we couldn't do, I would gladly send them somewhere else for somebody else to be able to help them. The reality is we haven't had it yet. I hadn't had a kid walk through our door that needed help with something that we couldn't help. But if it ever happens, I'm gonna make sure that we send them somewhere that they can get the help. And I'm gonna make sure I learn it, because it should be my job to be able to do those things. But the disconnect between players and not players, between coaches on all levels, including trainers, it's getting more about them or about us than it is about the kids. So, there needs to be some deep conversations about it and understand what your limits are. There are some coaches that will tell me openly, man, I can develop a kid up until maybe 5th grade or 6th grade. After that, it's not much that I can do. That's why I'm going to send them to you or send them to somebody that can help them. There are some high school kid coaches that say, hey, I can develop them and help them up to 10th, 11th, maybe, 12th grade. But what they need to be ready, going college, I don't have any expertise or knowledge in that. That's fine. Nobody's going to kill you for it. Now, if you're a high school coach and you don't know how to develop your kids to play high school, that's a problem. If you're a college coach and you don't know how to develop your kids to play college, that's a problem. But if you're developing lower level kids, you stay in your lane. And there are plenty of them out there. But I really think that disconnect, there needs to be conversation. I don't mind talking to other coaches and people about it and letting them know what my 2 cents, how I feel like they should be able to help. But you got to be able to openly have those discussions. You got to be able to look and say, you know what, maybe there's a different way, a better way of doing this. Maybe I'm maybe not equipped to do that. But some of these guys are, that's the thing. And that's why I tell parents, like, look, if they tell you, oh, I don't have the time, that's usually code for, well, I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to show them how to do this, right? And that's fine if you don't. Just, tell them to Google something or refer or something. Man, we have kids that we train that get really good, and you have the coaches that don't like what we do. But once the kids are getting better, then they want to bring their kids to us to train, right? They won't refer the other kids on the team to us, but they'll bring theirs. So I think it needs to be more about the kids and more of a conversation. I would love to be able to get every city league coach and AAU coach in the same, location and just talk and say, look, man, is this about the kids or is this about your ego or your path to become an NBA agent or a college coach? Because you got to decide why you're doing this, right? If you're doing this for the wrong reasons, it's going to always come out wrong. If you're doing it for the right reasons, it should flourish. I feel like we've been doing it for the right reasons. We've been doing it for 10 years in a facility, but 15 years total. I've been doing it for longer than that, even before I knew I was really doing it. And I've never just been like, no, don't listen to that coach. Now, no, let me take that lie back. Because when I have coaches who tell kids not to do something that's a basketball play, I encourage the kids to do it. And I tell them, look, as long as you can make the correct decision, you start making that shot, they're going to shut up. Because they know you know what you're doing now. They don't want you just out there doing anything, and I agree with that. But if you're doing something and it's the right decision that you just happen to miss that shot on, man, that happens with anybody. So I think that there needs to be a discussion as opposed to just venting on Facebook and yelling and arguing on Facebook. I tell you, boy, I don't even have to have TV. I can just go through my feeds and watch two people arguing and talking trash about each other and each other's kids that are playing, which doesn't make any sense, but it's the world we live in today. All right, this last thing I'm going to cover real quick is how to develop a workout routine. There are some people who, hey, I'm trying to work out, I'm trying to get shots up or I'm working on my game. But they're just out there and they don't really understand what they need to work on, why and how. So I'll just give you something that I used to do. I used to say, okay, I'm going to start from the middle at the top of the key. I'm going to either jab, pump fake, or sweep. I'm going to go right, 1 dribble, 2 dribbles at the most, and I'm going to finish layups. I'm going to make 10 in a row. Then I'm going to do the same thing going left. Okay, I'm going to make 10 in a row. Then I'm going to work on my ball handling. I'm going to start out with stationary ball handling. I'm going to do, dribble cross. But it's going to be a strong bounce, and that cross is not going to be wide. It's going to be with force. So I'm going to do that for maybe a minute. Then I'm going to switch to between for a minute, and I'm going to switch to behind for a minute. Okay? Then I'm gonna start walking up and down the court working on it. Dribble, dribble, cross, dribble, dribble between, up and down, working on it being tight, working on it controlling my body and the ball. Then I'll start to move a little faster on it, dribble between faster, dribble behind faster, right? So I'm getting that timing, because if you work on something in regular speed, but you don't work on it in game speed, that time is going to be off and you're going to have turnovers. Okay, so then I'll progress to maybe, catching the ball at the top of the key or at the wing, maybe making a jab or sweep. I'll go with jab, one dribble. Now I'm a counter move with a crossover, and I'm going to finish with a layup. Okay, if I'm done with my layup portions, maybe I move to reverse layup. All right, so I'm going to make a certain amount in a row. Okay, now I'm going to start to throw the ball coming off of curls, catch and shoot shots. Need to make a certain amount, whether it's 5, 6, whatever. Okay, and the only reason I'm not putting long amounts is because you want to make sure that you're, getting through your routine. You got to go left, you got to go right, which is very important. If you work on a pump fake, jab, one dribble, pull to the right, you better work on a pump fake jab, one dribble to the left. Because if you get pushed left and you're not comfortable going left for that jump shot, it's not going to work. You're not going to feel confident. So you want to make sure that you do equally going left what you do equally going right. You set an amount. You set a time limit. If it's 45 minutes to an hour, there are some people that work 2 to 4 hours. I don't know what you're working on where you're going hard for 2 to 4 hours. I would say 45 minutes to an hour. What was your lasting routine, L?
Probably like an hour, more than an hour.
Yeah, about an hour. By yourself, an hour. Now you better learn to shoot because if you can't shoot, you're gonna be doing a lot of rebounding. And that rebounding might push it over to an hour and a half to 2 hours if you can't shoot. You don't know how to shoot or make layups. But yeah, if you by yourself and you need to hit an intense flow where you're going at game speed, because you want to feel the speed and understand where it needs to be technically, whether you're going right or left. Okay, and then once you've done it, you've done through your dribbling, your shooting, your layups. Add something else in. Start looking at game situations, coming over the top, mix it up, throw out some difficult stuff that might throw you off. So now when you're in the game, it won't be so difficult. Okay, but you got to have a workout routine. Now notice I said workout, not training, because that's not training, it's working out. You're just fine-tuning what you already know how to do and doing it faster. Okay, so that will be all today. I think I didn't talk enough. I'm ready to go back to Vegas and lose some more money. But L, you want to hit bless him with something?
What you mean?
Man, you whatever you want to say. He kind of gunshot. He in her hard at working. So I keep saying I'm gonna get him on. I might just have to chase his ass down. Put his let some air out of his tire, and then he'll call me to pick him up. And then I just happen to have the microphone in the car while we driving and talk it up. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave y'all with what we always say, what we live by, which is if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm out.
Street cred sports, say it with your chest. Yeah. Go get it from the net. Street cred sports, okay, that's a bet.